It's kind of weird, right? We're in week 12 of the college football season and chaos still has yet to occur. Could it even? And honestly, what is the best case scenario for the college football playoff committee? Let's talk about it. If you are new here, welcome into the channel. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. So if this is the type of content you enjoy, which it feels like you do because you clicked on the video, why don't you click on that subscribe button down below. Tell me what you think is the best case scenario for the college football playoff committee. Tell your friends, your family, your sister, your brother, really everybody about this channel. And as always, let's continue to talk college football. So, chaos. It could occur in the next several weeks. It could occur Saturday with mainly one major game, Oregon State versus Washington. If Washington is unable to get their offense in full speed at the very start, they could be at the very end holding an L and thus creating more madness when it comes to deciding who goes to the college football playoff. But on the same token, what's the best case scenario if you are a college football playoff committee member? You want clarity, you don't want parity, and you want your job basically secured like we pick the four best teams. Or on paper, we pick the four best teams. Plain and simple. Four teams win, they win out, they go undefeated. That's your answer. And it's possible. It is very possible to where Texas is unfortunately holding the bag like the kid out of trick-or-treat party, waiting for you to be last in line. And it's like, oh, here's the scraps. Guess luck next year, kid. It could happen. Washington runs the table. They get two back-to-back wins over Oregon State and Washington State. Then they beat Oregon in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 title. Louisville loses in the conference championship to Florida State, who beats North Alabama and, of course, Florida in the next 2 weeks. Michigan or Ohio State find a way to either beat each other to oblivion or give us the greatest game of all time. One walks away victorious. The other takes the L and goes back home crying. And then they beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis. And of course, the SEC, you have Georgia just run the table. They get a win over Georgia Tech and Tennessee. Then beat Alabama, and Kirby Smart reigns supreme over Nick Saban this year. That's the best case scenario. And at that point also, I think we could agree you have no argument. Yes, we can all say that Florida State and the way they have played has been a little suspect at times, but that's neither here nor there. They still won prominent games. They marched into Death Valley and beat Clemson. And Clemson's not a great world-class beater, but who gives a care in the world? It's still Clemson, damn it. It's hard to play there, and it's really hard to win there. They beat a top 15 LSU team. And yes, at the end of the day, I still think LSU is going to be a top 15 team. And that was a top 10 win. And they did so when they were on their A game. So imagine what they look like when they are on their A game for the college football playoff. And you do have an exceptional rushing attack headlined by Trey Benson. And you do have exceptional quarterback play headlined by Jordan Travis, who does deserve a little bit more accolades than what we're giving. You have two superstar wide receivers in Keon Coleman and in Johnny Wilson, an emerging tight end that is basically a Swiss Army knife in Jaheim Bell, not to mention a defense that has been playing up to a standard. Honestly, if you go back and you watch that Miami game, what really stood out to me was their defense and their focus and attentiveness to keeping this thing ahead. Their offense could have easily crumbled, and it kind of did in the fourth quarter, but the defense stayed strong. They got critical stops, and more importantly, they got the win. If you have all three areas clicking at the right time, Florida State's a viable threat and absolutely deserves some consideration of being one of college football's best teams. You don't really care about what happens in the Big Ten because either way, you have the strength of schedule or the domination. If Ohio State were to win out, not only would they have 4 ranked wins, 2 against prominent teams in Notre Dame and Penn State, not to mention Michigan, and Iowa will be ranked when they play them in Indianapolis, but they also would be the team that showed you we are undefeated in a division where we have to beat up on our own opponents. Everyone knows this. In the Big Ten East, it is cutthroat. It's Michigan, it's Ohio State, and then it's Penn State right here. And they're supposed to beat up on each other, but instead you have one team showing up and showing out. But then again, if it is Michigan, think about this for a second. Michigan decided to play one school football against a Penn State team in their backyard and say, we're going to run a lot. We're not going to throw the football at all in the second half, minus a pass interference call, and we're still going to win by 9 points. I don't care. You won by 9 points. You won a football game against a top 15 opponent in their backyard, and it never felt like Penn State was in it. It never felt like Penn State stood a shot. After that first quarter, it was Michigan, only Michigan, and last and certainly not least Michigan. That's what you had. So they've won every other game by at least 35 points. They beat up on Penn State, who is a top 10 team. And if they do the exact same thing to a Marvin Harrison-led Ohio State Buckeyes roster, not to mention completely dismantle Iowa, lo and behold, they belong in the playoff. Georgia's the best team in college football. I don't think anybody would argue that. I think if you really look at the way that they've played, that's kind of giving you the inertia of where they stand because they don't have an off switch. They always seem to bring their A game in November. And this has been a constant thing that has rattled on for years on end, and it won't stop anytime soon, so long as Kirby Smart isn't pushing up daisies. He's very content on how the schedule goes. Have one bad game in September, start to get ourselves rolling in October, and by November, we are the world-class beater that you don't want to face on Saturdays. Plain and simple. And they're fully healthy, and they lost a player and got better offensively with the passing attack. They added back in Brock Bowers, who basically was built like the $1 million man for the 1970s. You also have a defense that still is sound, headlined by Glenn Schumann, and you're going to play Alabama. By the way, you do realize that at the start of the year when we were making fun of this cupcake schedule, we didn't think that Mizzou was going to actually be a viable threat. Mizzou's the one team that's hung around long enough to give them some bit of a scare. Ole Miss is going to finish somewhere in the top 15 of the rankings. And Tennessee will probably be ranked at the end of the day, even if they are to lose this weekend, because they play Vanderbilt. And then, okay, well, they're a top 25 team still, more than likely, maybe 21, 23, 24, but they're still a top 25 team. And then Alabama's going to be top 10. So that would be 2 top 10 wins. One win against a team that is currently in the top 10 and could easily run the table against Florida and Arkansas to close out the year. And then you beat Nick Saban in Atlanta, which is basically both of y'all's home away from home because of how long you've been there. So you deserve your spot in the CFP. And Washington to me is a fun, intriguing team because I love them in terms of what they are. They don't try to hide from what they've been. They know that their defense has struggled at times, so they put a lot of pressure on their offense to put up points, and it works. But I think last week's game against Utah showed you a different side of what Washington is. They won 11-0 in the second half. Do you understand that? Do you understand what I just said? They won 11-0 in the second half because their defense showed up. They got a couple big 3-and-outs. They got a huge interception to ice the game. They had a pick six that should have been, but instead the guy drops it at the 2. So instead they take the safety, get the ball right back, and lo and behold, score again. That was the game plan. And now you're seeing this rushing attack headlined by Dylan Johnson start to be more effective. You see Michael Penix Jr. in the red zone utilize his legs. He's got the best deep ball in college football, and he's got haymakers downfield who are just screaming, "I'm open, come hit me." And it would be one thing if you did this against Washington State or against Stanford or against Arizona State, the teams that you struggled against. But you're doing it against the best of the bunch. And yes, Utah may be a 3-loss team, but don't get it twisted. Utah's one of the most complete rosters, and more specifically, one of the most well-coached rosters in America. Every single week, you do not want to go up against Kyle Whittingham. And slowly, Kalen DeBoer said, "Welcome to the party. Get the hell out," and slapped him silly in the second half. And they got a game against a very good defense in Oregon State, an offense that features one of the best running backs in the country in Damian Martinez, and a quarterback that's basically rewritten history for himself since he left Clemson. And they're also going up against arguably the most underappreciated coach in college football, in Jonathan Smith. And this is an Oregon State team that wants to get to 10 wins in the regular season, and they can. They absolutely can pull off upsets and create chaos themselves. So don't think with Arizona winning, with Utah winning, with Oregon winning, Oregon State winning, and you would get another win against an Oregon team in Las Vegas, undefeated. You do not deserve a shot. It's very simple for the playoff committee. If you want as much clarity as possible, you hope that Florida State runs the show. You hope that the Bulldogs bully everybody. You hope that the Buckeyes or the Wolverines thrash and crash and kick each other's ass before beating up on Iowa. And you hope the dog pound in Seattle finds a way to beat up on the Ducks and they're undefeated. If Washington, Georgia, Ohio State / Michigan, and Florida State are all undefeated, there's your Final Four. And it may not be what you want, but it is going to be the right answer at the end of the day. You go undefeated, you did your job. Hard to argue with that. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.